Hi, I'm Ray Snyshul from Loan Risk Advisors, and I thought I'd do a quick compliance rundown on something that comes up often when dealing with marketing campaigns. It goes something like this. We're doing a marketing campaign for mortgage loans, and we'd like to know the restrictions on mailing, emailing, calling, and texting borrowers. Do we need to get consent before we do any of these? Okay, that's a loaded question. The short but dangerous answer technically is no, you do not need to do some of these. The follow-up to that, of course, is, but yeah, you're going to need some consent on other ones. So let's break this down a little in this compliance rundown. In this compliance rundown, we are talking about U.S. mail, email, inbound calls, outbound calls, and text messages. The terms we are using are opt-outs, DNC or do not call, prior express written consent, existing business relationship. The laws in play include, but are not limited to, CAN-SPAM, TCPA, TSR, or the telephone sales rule. Let's first talk about U.S. mail or any kind of snail mail. As a general rule, there is no limitation on sending mail to consumers. What you send and the information contained in it is very regulated, but the act of mailing to a consumer is not really regulated. Still, if a borrower writes to you to tell you to stop mailing them advertisements, it's a darn good practice to stop doing it. Next is email. You can email consumers without too much trouble, but in each email you need to give them a chance to unsubscribe or opt out. And if they do, be sure to unsubscribe them. There is more about CAN-SPAM, of course, but that's just a general point about the act of emailing consumers. Now we have phone calls. This can be complicated, but let me simplify it best as I can in these few minutes we have in this compliance rundown. Inbound calls. There are general laws and rules about recording calls, so if you're recording calls, be sure that for inbound calls, the consumer is made aware that the call is being recorded. And then there's outbound calls. First off, remember that if you're recording a call, you'll need to make the consumer aware of that. And now it gets a little tricky, so stay with me if you can, because we're going to be diving into do not call restrictions and, unrelated to that, restrictions on calls made to mobile phones. Let's visit the do not call list. Before you make any outbound call to solicit business, be sure the consumer is not on any do not call list, whether that is the national list, your in-house list of consumers who ask to be placed on your company's specific do not call list, or any applicable state do not call list. There are services that scrub numbers against this to give some confidence that the number you're calling is not on any DNC list. Not to put too fine a point on it, but also consider that the phone number your buddy gave you on a post-it note because his buddy is looking for a mortgage loan should also probably be scrubbed against the DNC list. Now, there are some existing business relationship exceptions here, whereby you might be able to call a consumer up to 90 days, in some cases up to 18 months after doing business with them. But be sure you remember that when we're using your call list. Next, we have calls made to mobile phone numbers. If a consumer's mobile number is on the DNC list, don't call it. Done. If the consumer's mobile number is not on the DNC list, your company's phone system has the capability of being an auto dialer and you still want to call it, then you're going to need the consumer's prior express written consent to call that number. Failure to get it before you make that call could trigger automatic legal liability. Notice that this applies if the phone system has the ability to be an auto dialer. That is not set up as an auto dialer may not matter. It's just that it has the ability to be an auto dialer. You will see this issue even pop up when lenders are getting leads from lead generators. You're going to need that prior express written consent if you want to make that call free of liability. This applies to text messages as well, not just calls made to mobile phones. And it doesn't matter if you did not know it was a mobile phone number. There are no mulligans in this part of TCPA. Let's close out this compliance rundown. For sending things snail mail, there are no legal restrictions per se, but it's best to honor a consumer's request to opt them out of receiving mail if they ask for that. For emails, you can send these to consumers, but be sure you give them a chance to opt out of future emails by having an unsubscribe button. And most importantly, be sure to honor that opt-out. For phone calls, if it's being recorded, be sure to let the consumer know that. Before you make an outbound call, make sure you run through all the appropriate DNC lists. If the number is on there, the general rule is to not call it. Sure, there is a business exception rule, but if you apply it, be sure you applied it 100% correctly. If you make a call to a mobile number, be sure you have prior express written consent. That applies, by the way, to text messages as well. Now look, of course this is not legal advice and there are so many more details and variables to address if you want to get things right. Hopefully, though, this helps in getting you to ask the right questions in developing your marketing strategy. That's it. If you need more on this, feel free to reach out to me and let's walk through your situation. Thanks for watching Loan Risk Advisors Compliance Rundown. Thanks.